all, and welcome to the Literary Baptists. I'm Lee, once again joined by my fellow co-hosts Zach, Nick, and Maddie. How are you all doing this fine evening?
Fantastic.
Same.
I'll third it.
Excellent. We have a quorum. We've returned after our inaugural episode of the first chapter of the Silmarillion, which was a lot of fun. I think, at least for me, I had a great time, and so we're gonna plod on to the next section, the Valaquenta. And again, we said it last time, but I love how short these chapters are. Again, like we said, people talk about how hard it is to read the Silmarillion. Like, you need what? I needed 15 minutes of quiet, and I read the whole chapter. It's not hard.
It's not like Lord of the Rings.
Right?
Short.
Yeah, they're very short. And I appreciate that very much. So this chapter is kind of broken up into three sections. So of the Valar is the biggest section, and then of the Maiar, which we haven't talked about yet, and then of the enemies. Very ominous.
Yes, what does the fox say?
Chaos reigns. It's Morgoth's little messenger. His angry elf.
Yes, love it.
One of the things on my reading this time, I don't know if this struck you guys, but I don't know that I'd paid that much attention to the actual heading of the Valaquenta, where it says account of the Valar and Maiar according to the lore of the Eldar. And it was like, oh, well, yeah, of course. Like, who are the ones that are going to be telling this story, right? It's going to be elves, and I don't know why I thought that, like, secondary, level of authorship was kind of interesting, because we know it's Tolkien giving us this and it's a story, but like, this is being told from the perspective of the elves.
It allows you to retain some of that, like, majesty that you would not get from just a straight up third party telling, or just a straight third person telling. I'm saying. And so it having it through that filter allows you to say, like, okay, this is just the surface. It's not the fullness of what these basically, well, I guess we're men, so we're supposed to call them gods, but maybe we can call them like super angels or something.
Super angels.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Archangels.
That little note. They are kind of archangelish, though. I mean, I think they fit more under like archangel type division rather than like gods.
Yeah,
he's kind of got the Norse mythology thing kind of poking through there in that moment. Because like, obviously there are multiple. There's lots of gods in the Norse mythological tradition, but some are more powerful than others, or and have different roles.
Mm-hmm.
They feel very angel-y to me.
Well, and I think it's interesting that it says that men have often called them gods. So it kind of gives you the idea that that's not the right way to think of them, but that that was the view that the men took of their role.
And so if you hear someone from the race of men talking about the gods, oh, they're talking about the Valar.
Yeah.
Or Valier for the ladies. That was a new thing I hadn't noticed before either, because it said, oh gosh, I'm trying to find the section where it said that.
It's right at the end of the Valar.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It says these are the names of the Valar and the Valier, and here's told in brief their likenesses, such as the Eldar beheld them.
It's gendered. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And there are only two.
There's only two.
Yep.
There are no queer Valar.
Take that, post-modernity. Even these guys, they can put on whatever raiment they want, and they're still in a binary.
Yep.
Yeah. It's almost like they were
speaking of
created
him,
male and female.
That's right. Eru knew what he was doing, man. I'm just going to briefly read off the names of the Valar just to make sure none get left out in our conversation. So at the very beginning of the Valar section, in the first paragraph, it says the names of the lords in due order are Manwë, Ulmo, Aule, Orome, Mandos, Lorien, and Tulkas. And the names of the queens are Varda, Yavanna, Nienna, Este, Vire, Vana, and Nessa. And then, of course, we have one very glaring omission from that list, which would be Melkor, who is no longer counted among the Valar, and his name is not spoken upon Earth. A very ominous way to kind of cast him truly into the void. Because he does go by a title. That's where that Morgoth comes from. That's really more of a title for him. So his proper name as a Valar really is not spoken on Earth. I don't even think by his followers. That's something I've never actually looked into before, but he is known kind of hereafter as Morgoth. Be interesting.
Well, the elves would have to know him.
The elves
his
would have
real
to
name,
know.
because that's what this source is supposed to be.
Can we really trust the elves, though? I don't know.
They won't speak it, but they'll write it.
So, of these Valar, man, we'll go around the room. Which Valar is your favorite, or Valier? Which one of the lords or queens is your favorite? Maddie, why don't you start?
Well, I definitely really like Orome. For obs reasons, I'm a horse girl. So
I think you really like Naharm the most.
Yes. Yeah. I'm thankful that the whole trans movement wasn't going on when I was a kid, because my parents probably would have got my hands and feet removed and replaced with hooves because I liked horses so much. So
she wants to be a horse, we'll let her be a horse, dog.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah, I was all about that. Like, I was all about it. So thanks, Mom and Dad. I still have hands. But really,
braid your hair like a mane instead of actual human hair.
Like I could neigh, I could gallop. I was in it, man. I was in it. But yeah. So still love horses. He's got a horse. He's got a pretty sweet horse. And then also the trees, like his love of trees and like the forests, and he's a man, or not a man, but a Valar of horses and hounds. So I'm all about that. I got lots of dogs too, so I just get them. But I also really like Aule a lot. So, and I don't really understand why I do, but I just like him. Pretty cool.
Do you have a desire for metalworks or?
That's why I don't think I don't understand why I like him, but I think I get his heart. Like he's really trying to put his work in, and then later, of course, with the dwarves, spoiler alert, I think that's really what I liked that story.
I love the dwarves. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to assume because you like Aule and identify with him, that you must desire to make things of your own that should be new and unthought of by others, and delight in the praise of your skill.
Yeah, I like being original.
OG.
Nick, how about you? Who's a Valar after your own heart?
Mandos. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm going to go with that.
That's how I pronounce it. I don't know if it's right or not.
Not so much the dead thing. I know that's like his thing. My last name is Graves, so it is appropriate.
It's fitting, man. You need to go all in.
But I like that he knows everything. Like if you know how sometimes people say, well, what kind of superpower would you like to have? If I could just know things That would probably be one that I would choose. And so I like that he just knows things. And the idea of kind of being the one who's carrying out these judgments, that seems pretty fun. I would do that. So I guess I do like dead people and stuff too. So it's all about the death, for me.
I think that's going to be the episode
my high
title.
school era.
It's not concerning at all.
No, don't be concerned. I was an emo kid in high school, so it makes sense. Just lingering. I guess
that explains the black eyeshadow.
Yeah.
Now I imagine Mandos has like the studded black belt and the black fingernails and the emo haircut.
Yeah, he's straight out of 2003.
That would be so great.
Zach, what do you think? Who's the one that stands out to you?
It's funny to me. It's Tulkas, I think, just because he's just like, yeah, I'm just a dude, bro, and not like I'm just hanging out, I'm just here to have fun and kick some tail.
Tulkas reminds me of Chuck Norris. Like
Yeah.
that's like who I envisioned when I read him.
The Chuck Norris of the Valar.
Yeah.
His weapons are his hands.
Exactly.
Laughing and wrestling seems fun.
Yes. He laughs in the face of even Melkor.
And that's true, because I think it's recounted at least somewhere that when they have a face-off and like Melkor is like kind of scared deeply by his joy of facing him, like for a guy who kind of enjoys people being afraid of him and kind of avoiding him, or being intimidated by him, and then Tulkas is up here like cracking his knuckles, let's go.
Yes.
I kind of, in his section too, I thought it was kind of funny. It's almost kind of a backhanded compliment, but it said of Tulkas, he is of no avail as a counselor, but is a hearty friend.
Right. So he's like the dwarves of the Valar. Like it's like you don't want to go ask him for anything, but he'll fight with you.
It's like Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, Leroy Jenkins. At least I have chicken. Like the sort of, or like a barbarian, right? In the fantasy stories, if you read any Dungeons and Dragons novels or anything like that, it's like one of the barbarians. Just he's got a tankard in one hand and a sword in the other, or something, Except he doesn't use weapons, but you know what I mean.
That's so sweet. He's one of the ones that kind of stands out to me as like, this is kind of a weird Vala, because he's not really associated with a natural element, or something like that, like being associated with stars or with trees or things like that. Like he's associated with force, like power and prowess, I guess.
He's the patron saint of boxing.
Oh, that would be dope.
Greco-Roman style wrestling.
Imagine like Numenorian.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you know how like the elves have like a hymn to Elbereth, like it's recounted in Lord of the Rings, in Fellowship of the Ring, where it's being sung. I could imagine like Numenorian boxers having a little like chant to Tulkas before they hit the octagon. That'd be pretty sweet. I think that'd be awesome.
Yes.
In my headcanon, that happens.
Maybe we'll see that in the next episode of Rings of Power.
I knew you'd say that. Anything would be better than what they're doing right now. I'll take it. Let the
I'm looking
stranger be
forward
Tom
to the final
Bombadil.
episode.
I wish it were the final episode.
Then you wouldn't have as much left to hate.
No, that's true. I'd have to channel it into other things. That could be dangerous. For what it's worth, my Valar is Ulmo. I think I already played that card last episode, but I just dig Ulmo and his like Middle Earth centeredness. Like he's so driven just to we're working for Middle Earth here, you know. Where I think maybe he might be the most passionate about the children of Iluvatar, because he's like literally everything he does is for the good of the children and for the good of Middle Earth. I just think he's just a super Chad, man.
We've got to do it for the kids.
Gotta do it for the kids, man. For the children.
For the children.
Yeah, he's just like big granddaddy in the water, man. He's great. He's just looking out for everybody. He's the best.
That's how I'm going to think of him from now on. Big granddaddy in the water. That
Well,
sounds
even
like
in,
something from Louisiana.
That could be like some local myth, you know, or something. That could be cool. Like some people have Bigfoot or the what was it? The
skunk ape.
Skunk ape.
The skunk.
I was
skunk
gonna say sand ape.
No, he smells bad. They call him skunk ape.
That must be one of the fell beasts that Arome is
Yeah.
out there
Oh.
hunting.
Definitely.
It's the one Arome missed, the one that got away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you? I know this is completely off topic, but have you heard the I forget the guy, the famous comedian who did like one-liners, and he's dead now, but he did a one-liner about Bigfoot, and he's like, you know, my idea about Bigfoot is he's blurry. We're all getting good pictures of him. He's just blurry.
Yeah. Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch Hedberg, that's who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of my favorite jokes of all time.
Yes.
He's just blurry. We all chose male Vala as our favorites, but you know there are ladies too. After all, one of the things that makes me think, especially when it comes to the Valar, is like, so most of them are married, or at least presented as being married. So there's a husband and wife. Obviously, Ulmo isn't married, and neither is Nienna. And I think those are interesting cases, perhaps as to why. But
I set them up. Actually, they're going to be meeting for dinner next week. So fingers crossed. Maybe all of them will be together pretty soon.
ValarMingle.com.
Yeah, the water's about to get really sad.
Can't wait for that.
Tears.
Just tears. It's good. Yeah, the ocean is just going to be so huge now with all those tears of pity filling it up. So these husband-wife combinations, do you think there is a reasoned complement between the elements of these husband and wife Vala marriages? I kind of think that there might be. I don't think Tolkien never did anything by accident. He was pretty meticulous, but you know, so for Manwë, you know, who's sort of Lord of the Airs, let's say for an example here, and then his wife is Varda, Lady of the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of their complement, like they complement each other, just even in over the elements that they're kind of lord or lady over. They go together. Yeah,
they're up there.
Well, I thought what was interesting is that they, like he says with Manwë and Varda, is that when they're together, like their abilities are stronger. So he can see further than all other eyes if he's with her, and she can hear more clearly. I don't know. It's cool.
It seems kind of an interesting complementarian principle at play, whether consciously or unconsciously on Tolkien's part. But Now, sometimes
Yeah.
some Vala have difficult marriages, but I think probably I'd say Manwë and Varda get along.
Yeah, it certainly seems like their abilities or whatever seem like they're fairly well paired. It kind of is like a natural association for most of them. So, and I think it's really hard not to hear a lot of like Greek mythology in this. Like, it definitely harkens a lot to the Greek pantheon for sure. But it is interesting you don't have any multiple wives thing happening here like you would find in the pantheon.
Yeah, they're monogamous.
Mm-hmm.
Very backward and transgressive.
They do have like relationships, but non-romantic ones. Because I remember one of them, like it'll mention that the tree is connected to Manwë in the air and Ulmo in the ground, and so there are connections, even if they're not romantic ones. If the Greeks went away with that, I think this one's more like friendship sometimes, almost, or just hanging out, learning from the water, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because at least Manwë and Melkor are kind of cast as being brothers, and a couple of the queens are sisters as well. So there's familial as well as kind of marriage or partnership type connections at play too, which certainly I'm sure plays a part in that as well.
Yeah, and you see a lot of that later on with like the trees and different things like that as well.
Because of my my Ulmo thing, there was a line that really stuck out to me when I was reading this. In the chapter, obviously we talk about Manwë and Varda first, and then it gets to Ulmo, which I think we're kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like we're going in terms of stronger or perhaps more prominent to the lesser prominent as we go through. And so Ulmo would be, I guess, kind of second or third. And there was something where it said about his voice. Ulmo's voice is deep as the deeps of the ocean, which he only has seen. And I was kind of thinking about that because as far as I could remember, he's the only one that has like a reference to his voice made. And we talked last time about how the music of the Ainur was heard the deepest in the waters of Middle Earth. And I don't know, I was just curious if you guys had any thoughts about this particular mention of Ulmo's voice. Because I was almost wondering if it was a reflection of the voice of Eru kind of speaking through the music. I don't know. Maybe I was thinking too much about it.
He does have a horn too. So
does Orome.
Yes. I mean, horns are great. And there's a lot of talk about him making noise. So, but is it musical?
Yeah.
I guess some of it is, but I think a lot of that has to do with just water being so transient, just moves around so much. And I think it even says Ulmo is just constantly moving. He doesn't want to stay on the land. He doesn't stay in one spot long. I think that's a huge part of his deal, that transience. He just moves around a lot, and noise is kind of in a way like that. You make a noise, and there's music can go up and down and over, and so I think it's pretty similar to that. Although it probably is connected to the music in the water from the Ainulindale as well.
I think it must be. It's it says here those to whom the music comes hear it ever after in their hearts, and longing for the sea never leaves them again. It's something that they never forget. They never forget the music, and it creates in them something deeper and a longing. I think that's pretty true of the sea anyway, in general. Like, people who've never seen the ocean, they go and they see it and they're like, oh, wow. It's like, it's amazing. They want to see it again. They want to hear it. They want to know more. It's and some people are terrified, right? And I think that that's also true of it's true of Maddie.
Yeah.
It's true of his name. Like, that's me. But either way, you have a sense of awe about it. Like, this is bigger than I am, and it's deeper and it's powerful, much like the music that created everything.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, it's been a little while since I've read it, but was it Legolas who was like had the longing for the sea, like in the end of the books? I can't remember. I felt like towards the end he kept having this like longing for the sea every time, ever since he had seen it. Maybe it wasn't him, but
Yeah, because he had never seen it before because he lived in the woods.
yeah.
Almost it kind of awoke something in him, which I think might have been why he was so eager to then get on the ships at the Great Havens when the time came too. After exploring more of Middle Earth with Gimli, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely
Because normally his kind didn't sail to Valinor, right?
right.
They would just live out their lives in Middle Earth. The Mori Quendi.
Yeah, there's definitely that theme like throughout just his writings of the sea calling, and I thought that was interesting. I didn't know if that was kind of like him implying just kind of that longing to sail, like because I think a lot of times when you read stuff, there's that kind of sailors, love of the open seas, and you kind of get that in a lot of books. I obviously do not relate to that whatsoever. I'm not terrified, but I'm not like desperate to go get on a boat in the ocean. But there is that a lot in literature and song, and so you definitely get a lot of that throughout his writing.
In addition to reading this for this show, I've been reading Unfinished Tales as well, and talking about the sea stuff is reminding me of one of the tales in there about Aldarion, who would be a prince of Numenor, who's just obsessed with boats and with sailing and was crisscrossing the ocean going back and forth to Middle Earth to find timber and build better and better ships. And it basically like tanks his chances of getting married. Everybody's pressuring him like, you've got to get married. And he like wants to, but he still wants to sail, and he's gone for years on end. And it was just like at some point his dad, the king, tells him, oh, well, he's gotten engaged. And he said, you can't marry two women. Either choose the woman or the sea. You can't have both. And he really like in the story, he really has to kind of search deep within himself. Who am I going to pledge myself to? And so that longing for the sea that we're talking about really reminded me of that. Because that's definitely a Numenorian trait is seafaring.
The sea is always right.
The sea's Zach, go touch the darkness, okay?
I already did. That's why I have all this light around me.
So rudely, I skipped directly to Ulmo. But did you guys have any comments you wanted to make about Monwë or Varda, aka Elbereth? I didn't want to give them short shrift because they are so important. In a way, they're almost boring. Like they're like the Superman of this thing. Like when you talk about Justice League, like Superman, yeah. Like that's why Batman was always my favorite comic book character, because like there's so much to his character. Like, yeah, maybe he doesn't have superpowers, but man, he's an interesting person. And Superman never was. I mean, I liked Superman, but like as a complex character, he just didn't have it quite as much for me. And that's kind of how I feel about Monwë and maybe Elbereth to a certain degree. But the coolest thing about Monwë is them eagles, man.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the eagles.
I was going to say that makes, like, if you read this and you understand Monwë's connection to the eagles and all those people, Josh, out there that, criticize the eagles showing up, at last minute, like, why didn't they just send the eagles before this or whatever? Like, that it's Monwë sending the eagles kind of in dire need. So it's definitely important to understand where the eagles are coming from.
They're not an Uber. Books. They're not Middle Earth's Uber. They're not a taxi. They are, quite literally the Deus ex machina. like God, like a god literally sends the eagles to solve the problem. That shouldn't be embarrassing. I know people have used that as like a criticism of Lord of the Rings, like, oh, he just, it's so in so many different plot lines there's a Deus Ex Machina type device, but I mean, there is a god of Middle Earth, so it's part of the world, it's part of the plot. That's not a criticism, like that's just part of it, right? It's not blind chance.
And you see provision, Eru through Manwë providing provision.
Yeah, we're supernaturalists. We're not naturalists. So I think this makes sense to us because that's just as Christians, that's who we are. Like we understand how God's providence works. We certainly confess His providence, and I know we've all seen His providence at work in our own lives and in lives of people we know. So it's not something that I would criticize in a work of fiction as well. One developed by a Christian. Like it would be weird if some element of providence wasn't involved in the story,
And the characters don't count on them either. Just like we wouldn't count on, God sending an angel to keep you from flying out of your car because you didn't wear a seatbelt. It's kind of the same concept.
So you don't do that?
Step out in faith, okay?
Right?
Yeah. Go up to the tallest building and jump off, and an angel will catch you.
Okay.
I saw that on an inspirational calendar quote.
Yeah, it was a Bible verse.
It's in the Bible, man. Believe it.
Yeah.
Also, there's some bad advice in Job I could really encourage you to take too.
Yeah.
Reminds me of there's like a pastor in Africa or something that was like he could walk on water and he walked out and like got eaten by a bunch of crocodiles. Don't do that.
Oh my gosh.
That's providence.
I didn't see that in the long ending of Mark.
Could we say that Varda is the reason that Melkor touched the darkness? It's her fault. It was the woman, Lord.
Now it all makes sense.
She rejected him, and he hated her.
He began with the desire of light, and when he could not possess it for himself alone, he descended into darkness. I mean,
it's in the text, man.
I think that's you got it.
And it's back to that secret thing too that you mentioned last time, Nick, about like a whole central thing about Melkor is like going off in secret and doing his works that no one else can see. Like he wanted the light for himself, not for anybody else. He was going to take it for his own. What a fatal flaw, that selfishness and taking all of his power to serve his own ends.
So I'm curious, like kind of in that strain, it's kind of scary to go in this like maybe Hereticville, but where the Valar are called the children of Iluvatar's thought, and so each of them have like a trait of Iluvatar. So what is it in Melkor what trait of Eru does he have? Is it because like you think of like the Bible saying that God is a jealous God, but God being jealous isn't a sin because he deserves all of it. All of it is his. Whereas you see in Melkor kind of that corruption of jealousy and pride and selfishness is bad because none of it is his. I was just playing that out. Hopefully I'm not a heretic.
I have two ideas, but I want to see if anybody else has anything first.
Let's hear those ideas.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I think Maddie's right and not a heretic. Just for the record.
Thank you. Phew.
You have been affirmed.
Let's see what Lee says.
The council has spoken. You're not a heretic.
Well, we women, we can be easily deceived. So
Don't eat any apples, okay?
I'll try not to.
I think there's two ways that kind of Melkor has twisted something from Eru, and then I think one of them is Eru's ultimate power, like his absolute sovereignty over his creation of Arda. Melkor was given the most power of all the Valar. I don't think that was an accident by Eru in any way. Like he was the most powerful single Vala. It's said that in multiple places. And then also Eru's, I'm going to say like Eru's core purpose in the creation of Arda wasn't just to create Arda, it was to create the children of Iluvatar. And so through the Vala, he was creating a place for his own people, his highest creation to live. And I think a little bit of that kind of rests in the sinful heart of Melkor. Well, not that it's ever said in the text this way, but I could see him saying this. Well, Eru gets to have the two children. Why can't I have something of my own? Why am I serving his ends? Why can't I have my own project? And I think, we'll talk about Ale in a little bit, but I think Ale has a little bit of that too, but still defaults back into the greater mission and not his own. But Melkor doesn't. He fully turns inward and serves himself using his great power, and totally takes the power that Eru's given him and turns it for evil. I don't know. That's my theory. Am I a heretic?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll see myself out. Thank you. My stake awaits. Kind of speaking of Ale, then, since he's already gotten a name drop, what do you guys think of that idea of kind of an Ale Melkor crossover pipeline type thing? Do you see a relationship between the two in any way?
Just in their desires to create. One obviously corrupted.
Yeah.
Ale, I think, is focused outward while Melkor is focused inward.
The smith and master of all crafts.
In some ways, they're also opposites. So, yes, Melkor has a desire to create, but he wants to be the creator.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Ale creates something, Melkor comes to destroy it. He doesn't want other people. He doesn't want to do this in a group. He doesn't want to do it with anyone's direction. He wants to be the only one. Whereas Ale is able to work with others and work towards actually constructing something and fixing and repairing what Melkor's trying to destroy. Because he's going back, he's jealous. He does not want other people creating great things. He wants to be the only one. In that way, they are a little bit opposite because he's also a destroyer as well as an attempted creator.
I enjoyed in this section about Ale the call out of the Noldor, which is a little bit anachronistic at this point. But so the Noldor are one faction of the elves. At this point in history, the elves haven't even woken up yet, so they don't exist in Arda yet. But the Noldor, which are a very troubled clan of elves in a lot of ways, it said that Noldor learned most of him, and he was ever their friend. And so, like, it's funny because like all elves have reverence for Elbereth, Varda, Lady of the Stars, but then this particular group of Noldor, who are the greatest elvish craftsmen, right? That's the line that Feanor comes from, who makes the Silmarils. That's the line that Celebrimbor comes from, who forges rings of power. And of course, Galadriel comes from this line as well. The real Galadriel, not Guy Ladriel, who lives in the Amazon. the true and greater Galadriel.
Probably not a greater swimmer, though.
Probably not a greater swimmer. She's a very impressive swimmer, this Amazon Galadriel. Yeah. Who I've never heard of a single living being ever crossing the sundering sea by hand. Of course, who gets banished to Valinor anyway? You've done so great. I'm gonna send you to heaven. Like, what kind of plot device is this?
Yes.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you. I would love to go.
Lee, do you think going to heaven is a punishment?
No, but Amazon treated it that way.
Well, she had things to do. Okay,
She had things to do.
her to-do
It
list
wasn't
was
her
not all
time.
crossed off.
She's
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
tall, guys.
There's a tempest in her. The tempest had to be quieted. And honestly, what can quiet a tempest more than the significance of the passage of time?
Oh, there it is. There
She
it is.
needed a few thousand years more of time to quiet that tempest. Her and her apparently potentially dead husband, who they should have already had a child by now. But that's beside the point.
Maybe it was Ulmo helping her, swim across the sea there. We don't know.
They missed an amazing opportunity to name check another Vala. Like by the grace of Ulmo, she made it to that little flotsam ship that Sauron was on, or Halbrand was on. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw it.
Spoilers.
I'm an evangelical thought leader. Going back to Melkor a bit, in this paragraph, it says Melkor was jealous of Aule, for Aule was like himself in thought and in powers, which I think goes to what you were saying, Nick, that they were very similar. And there was long strife between them, in which Melkor ever marred and undid the works of Aule, and then Aule would fix them. He would repair the tumults and disorders of Melkor, which I think is just superb writing. Like, let's fix his disorders, and then there will be more disorders.
System of a Down reference.
System of a Down. Thank you very much.
in some ways, that's also what we have to put up with, like on Earth now as Christians. Like we can try to build, institutions like denominations, and Satan and humans destroy them, and so we have to build something new. I mean, that's part of what happens with the things that we have built here. They tend to get destroyed, and we have to fix them. So
it's a post-mill worldview.
Yeah. Now we're talking. I can't believe it's only episode 2 and we've already gotten into eschatology. This is great, you guys. It's exactly what I want.
I'm not saying that we necessarily will fix them better.
That's where we rely on providence, right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Providence.
Tear down the train station to put up a 4-story building made of glass. Then,
yes.
They paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Yes, that's the same. Aule is the god of parking lots.
The god of parking lots.
That's pretty earthy.
That's a work of skill unthought of by others. We're going to park our mechanical steeds. Here, Aule's got an idea.
He'd be creating the mechanical steeds, right?
Yeah, really, he would. Aule remained faithful to Eru and submitted all that he did to his will. And I think there's your vital difference between the two. And we'll see in the course of the story just how faithful Aule is, even in the times that he strayed, because he does stray, and he causes stress, at least to his wife and probably to others as well. But in the end, he always is faithful to Eru and in the work that they were given to do.
You also see in him, just kind of along those lines of kind of what Nick was saying, that I see a lot of the echoes of like Dominion, when we're talking about man having dominion, because he's teaching the elves and then the men those skills. And so you see a lot of that, them learning to take of the earth and do things and make things and shape things. Whereas when Melkor does that, it's always for destruction. And Tolkien seems to think very strongly about a lot of that. The good and bad pro-con uses of technology and in industry.
There's an interesting push-pull between Aule's dominion sphere, like you're saying, Maddie, and the preservationist ideas of his wife, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another, complementary principle between the married Vala. Like we have to have industry, we have to build. There is a command to take dominion, but at the same time, we have to also be responsible with the resources that God's given us on the earth too. And again, this is bringing me back again to Aldarion. So in the Second Age, he's going and cutting down timber all over the place. But at the same time, he's basically planting 2 trees for every one that he cuts down. And so he actually never ends up deforesting Middle Earth or Numenor either because of his program. And he actually wins popularity among the people because he's industrious but not destructive, which has been the case in the past. You're either industrious or you're destructive. That's kind of the story of, that's the story of Sauron, right? That's the story of Saruman at Isengard as well, where you just rip down the trees for the fires of industry. And so I think striking that balance, you're certainly in the will of Eru, and I think you see that in the marriage of Aule and Yavanna.
Yeah, you see that thread throughout so much of what Tolkien wrote.
He loves trees.
I also love trees.
Trees are great.
I don't.
Sorry, Professor, I didn't recognize you. My apologies.
Wow.
Your book is really good.
Oh, thank you. I don't hug many trees, though. I just like to look at them.
And eat from them.
Eating from
fruit.
And
certain
causes
fruits.
all problems.
Certain fruits.
Particular forbidden fruits.
Well,
I don't know. I heard it was going to give me a lot more knowledge and wisdom.
She has Harfoot's hand oversized apples in slow motion to you.
You don't like Rings of Power, Lee, but you still watch it.
I do. I have to watch it so I can tell people why it's bad. This is an act of service to others, the fact that I'm watching this show.
thank you so much.
It's like all those discernment ministries.
Yeah. We have to endure the horrible sermons so we can explain to people what's horrible about them so they won't do it themselves.
Yep.
It's an act of service, man. It's
So watching Rings of Power is like watching a Furtick sermon?
It's about that level, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Eru broke the law for love. Monway can't override your unbelief.
Galadriel
I am
fights the
Eru.
darkness for love.
I am Eru Iluvatar. Oh, that's so good. We need to monetize that.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
It's on our next t-shirt.
I am Eru Iluvatar. Another thing I'd forgotten and was reminded of, this category, the Feyan Turi, the Masters of Spirits, which refers to Mandos and Lorien. I had kind of forgotten about that category, but so I guess that's kind of their element, is like the other people get trees and rocks and stars and they get spirits. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, I guess.
Which I am.
You're into being judgy.
Nick is into spirits.
I'm into judging people, death, Yeah, I mean, all those things, those are huge on me. So,
Which spirits, distilled or
Yes.
yes.
The more distilled, the better.
Yeah.
Well, I know you already waxed poetic about Mandos, which is interesting. So like Mandos isn't necessarily his name; it's almost a title for him based on kind of where he reigns. So like Namo is his actual name, but everybody just knows him as, oh, he's the Mandos guy. They know him by his works, by his fruits.
Is that like the same as Hades? Because Hades,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think so. I don't know that he has another name though.
yeah. I'm trying to think of it.
Wasn't there another guy, Kronos? I'm so lax in my.
That's earlier. That's
Okay, that's
one of
Greek,
those,
right?
well, it's Greek, but it's before. They're both Greek, but he's one of the before the gods came on. I forget what they're called.
Titans.
The Titans. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's one of them. And then I think he's Uranus in Roman. I could be wrong on that. Going back to Mandos,
I am 12 years old.
Yes.
I am younger.
I pronounced it a certain way.
That doesn't change anything.
It's up here, man. It's in my attic.
In your attic. Speaking of people with big attics full of stuff,
you're so good at this, Nick.
I'm a little bit confused about Mandos and his wife, very.
Yeah.
Do they control time? Does she? It sounds like everything is like she's like a fate that's determining what actually happens, and it's some of these things. Maybe I'm just looking at this too rationally, but that doesn't make any sense.
I think they have crafted and maintain Eru's corridor of time. Okay. I think that's what they do.
See, that's one of those things that's kind of just it's not something that we would think about or attach to a personality or even attach to something that's necessary, that time would need that. But she's weaving things in, and then she gets these big tapestries and fills his halls that are always growing. And I mean, constantly growing halls, that's pretty cool too, with history tapestries lining the place. Another reason why he's my boy, because his wife is the best. You know, she controls time, sort of, or manages time.
Yeah, at least really well documents it, if nothing else.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. Is that, I mean, it says that Mandos, he doesn't forget anything, so he remembers the song and how, like, and everything that was shown to them, how it's going to play out. So he knows that's going to happen, and then it seems to me like she's like recording.
So she's a historian.
Yeah, as it's going, she's weaving as it's done.
It's almost like they're in a museum.
Oh man.
Maybe that's why you identify with them so much. I like these guys.
They are a museum
every day.
Man,
Mandos Halls is a museum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Museum of the Dead.
Museum of the Dead, yes. I mean, it's still an emo museum.
Lots of shadows in those pictures, and people looking away, looking down. I like the webs, the storied web. Gosh, I think that's super interesting, and like kind of a an arachne type thing as well. Kind of reflection of Arachne too. She's like the one kind of like spidery aspected character who's not evil.
Yeah, all the other ones are.
Yeah.
Spiders are bad guys.
Of course, spiders, they always are. They're always the bad guys. That's why Charlotte's Web is deplorable. Never make a spider the good guy. Don't read your children Charlotte's Web. It should be banned.
Wow.
Just finished reading that one to the kids.
It's a strong opinion on Charlotte's Web. So now we know that we can't trust you when you say don't watch Rings of Power.
See, not all of my hot takes are serious. They're all a joke, but some of them are more serious than others, and this was not one of the more serious ones. I was in a play of
100%
Charlotte's
serious
Web when I was in
always.
high school.
Were
Serious
you
as
Wilbur?
Mandos. What?
Were you Wilbur? You were in a play?
I was in
Charlotte's
a play of Charlotte's Web. And
Were you
I played
Wilbur?
I played Templeton the Rat.
Oh, that makes sense.
I could choose so much scenery, you guys. It was great. I loved that part. I had a fat suit. Ironically, the fat suit that I wore as the fat rat looks like my body now. Like I became Fat Templeton. I'd
I
be
did
proud
see
of
you
it if
gnawing
it
at
didn't
your
make-
chair just a minute ago.
Yeah, I'm
Have
hungry.
you've seen the old animated movie, right?
Oh yeah.
Now I hear you as Templeton. Yeah, the voice is there, guys.
I'll never forget the thing. He goes to the fair and he's like slobbering over all the great food at the fair, and he goes, "And there's caramel candy." That has always stuck in my mind. That and Chaos Reigns.
Yes.
Anyway,
Classic.
so in true terrible I'm trying to come up with the right way to say it, but anyway,